මම හිතන්නේ මූලික වශයෙන් බැලුවොත් අපේ පොඩි කාලේ මගේ පොඩි කාලේ අවුරුදු 6 විතර ඉඳ කාලේ තමයි අපේ තාත්තට දියවැඩියාව හැදුනේ. ඊට පස්සේ අපේ අම්මටත් දියවැඩියාව හැදුනා. මටත් වයස 28 විතර වෙනකොට දියවැඩියාව හැදුනා. ඉතින් මේ අතර ඒකට අදාළ මේ නොයෙකුත් ද්විතීයික ලක්ෂණ ගොඩක් මට ඇති වුණා. මගේ ඇස්වල දෙකේම ප්‍රශ්න ආවා. ඒ වගේම කකුලේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් ආවා. කකුලේ ඇඟිලි කපන්න තරමට ගිහිලි කරලා පස්සේ බේරුනේ. යගිම හෘද වස්තුවේ මගේ බයිපාස් එකක් කරලා තියෙනවා. නැත්නම් ඒ අරුණම කන ඇහිමත් දැන් අඩු වෙගෙන යනවා. ඉතින් මේ තත්ත්වයේ උඩ මම වෘත්තියෙන් ඉංජිනේරුවෙක් විදියට සහ අපි IT ගැන මම හදාarලා තියෙනවා. මේ පැත්ත පිළිබඳව කටයුතු කරන නිසා මම මේ පිළිබඳව සාමාන්‍ය ලෙඩුන්ට දෙන සාමාන්‍ය උපදේශය විදියට හුඟක් දේවල් කියෙව්වා. ඉතින් මේක මගේ ජීවිතය සතරමත් පොඩිකම වෙනස්කම් තියෙනවා. ඒ නිසා මම මූලික වශයෙන් කල්පනා කරලා බැලුවොත් මට එකෙන් ලැබුණු අත්දැකීම් ඉංජිනේරුවෙකුගේ දෘෂ්ටි කෝණයෙන් බැලුවොත් මගේ අද තියෙන සෞඛ්‍ය තත්ත්වය පවත්වා ගන්න ප්‍රයෝජනවත් උනායි කියලා මම හිතුවා. ඉතින් ඒක නිසා මම මූලික වශයෙන්ම මේ කරුණු ටික ඉදිරිපත් කිරීම තමයි මේ පොත මගින් අදහස් කරන්නේ. If you look at that the history of mine, my father was identified as a diabetic when I was 6 years old. Later my mother also became a diabetic. I was identified as a diabetic at the age of 28. So at the moment I have been living as a diabetic for over 38 years. Normal instructions given to any diabetic patient is that you have to study the disease and the particular complications. In fact, I had several complications in both my eyes, my leg, heart, and now it has gone to the ears as well. So if you look at that, the complications that I have faced and my family's history made me to read quite a lot on the particular subject. Actually, I am a person who has a general interest in reading any subject which I am interested about in detail. On the other hand, my views are generally biased by my educational and professional background, being an IT professional as well as a engineer. So I look at the disease in a angle of an engineer, and that helps me to manage the disease. According to my opinion, that helps me to look at the disease in a different angle. So this book was written to explain and share my experience and views on the subject. I think basically my meditation practice, especially awareness meditation, also helped me to manage my disease. So this book contains a summary of my experience as well as the views which I have formed by reading the relevant material and looking at them in a point of view of an engineer.
What is the key message that you are giving to your readers about diabetes through this book?
I think it is a disease that you have to be very careful about it. But on the other hand, getting stress itself can cause the situation much more worse. Therefore, not getting stressed about the disease is useful. On the other hand, I think that the particularly non-diabetics or probably some diabetics as well should understand the background of the particular disease rather than blaming the patients. It will, a reasonable part of the particularly the disease can be controlled by lifestyle adjustment, but I don't think that will solve the total problem. Therefore, taking medicine or probably some other steps seems to be useful, but you have to have a balance of in the activities to get the life going on.
जीवन दिनी
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening and welcome to the launch of the book titled An Engineer's Experience of and Views on Diabetes by Mr. Arya Kirti Kumarasena. It's a pleasure and a privilege to welcome this distinguished audience present here today, especially the chief guest for the event, Professor Carlo Fonseca, and special guest, Professor C. Jayatilaka, as well as each and every one of you present here today. To commence the event's proceedings, I'd like to invite, for the lighting of the traditional oil lamp, Professor Carlo Fonseca, chief guest, Professor C. Jayatilaka, special guest, Dr. S. A. Kumarasena, Mrs. J. M. D. Bandara, Mr. A. Tissa Pereira, Mr. Bertie Vijay Singha, Mr. Bertie Fernando, Mr. J. J. Ambani, Mr. E. S. Gunaratna, Professor Ranjini Gamage, Dr. Lakmini C. Somatunga, Dr. Lasantha Malavige, Master Osal Vikramasinghe, accompanied by the author, Mr. Arya Kirti Kumarasena, for the lighting of the traditional oil lamp. Welcome this distinguished audience. I'd like to invite on stage Professor Ranjini Gamage. Before I invite Professor Ranjini Gamage, I'd like to introduce her to the audience. Professor Ranjini Gamage is a cousin of the author. She has an MBBS from the University of Colombo, MD from the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, and MRCP UK. She has served as a neurologist of the Department of Health and was the founder president of the Sri Lanka College of Neurologists. She has a professorship from the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine and has served as a member of the Sri Lanka Medical Council. She is currently serving as a board member of the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Ranjini Gamage on stage.
Good evening, Chief Guest Professor Carlo Fonseca, Guest of honor, Professor C.L.V. Jayathilaka, all distinguished invitees, relatives and friends. I consider myself fortunate to stand here today, bestowed with the honor of welcoming you on behalf of my cousin, Aryakirti Kumarasena, at the launch of his 60th book, An Engineer's Experience of and Views on Diabetes. Professor Carlo Fonseca, our chief guest, is my mentor, who is responsible for nurturing and molding numerous medical professionals during his illustrious career as a professor of physiology at the Colombo Medical Faculty. He does not need much introduction. He held many prestigious positions in the state sector, most recent being the chairmanship of Sri Lanka Medical Council. During his tenure as the chairman, I had the privilege of closely associating him as a member of the council. Due to this interaction, I gained immeasurable and invaluable experience, and in fact, I realized I still have a lot to learn from him. He is a resourceful teacher who encouraged free thinking, a patient listener, a creative artist, an excellent situation manager, a constructive critic, a political ideologist, and a great philosopher. He is a living example of multi-dexterous personality. Honorable Sir, whilst welcoming, I wish to take this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude for undertaking the responsibility of reviewing this book on my request. Let me now warmly welcome Professor C.L.V. Jayathilaka, our guest of honor, an erudite personality who has had numerous academic positions in several universities. Dean of the Faculty of Engineering, University of Peradeniya, Dean of the Faculty of Engineering, University of Ruhuna, Vice Chancellor of University of Peradeniya, Chancellor of University of Wayamba, renowned educationist at national advisory level, and more importantly, a great teacher admired by the author. I further express my warm welcome to many individuals amongst this audience who had helped my cousin medically, educationally, psychosocially, and spiritually to be what he is today. All doctors who supported to uplift his health at all times. Ananda College masters, university lecturers, and professors who toiled hard to make him from infancy to his current status. Metropolitan Board of Directors, staff members, ex-board members and ex-staff members, schoolmates and families, batchmates and families, other engineers, doctors and friends, neighbors, media personnel, and relations. Last but not the least, 9 out of 10 siblings in the author's family who are present here today. At this juncture, I have to make a special note on Mrs. Jagat Bandara, Jagat Akka, who is immensely supporting Kirti Ayya as a second mother in his personal life. She, in fact, had edited all 60 books which he had published and contributed towards all his other activities, such as meditation programs. Before concluding, I am compelled to mention my own point of view, namely medical blindness in diabetes management, which I feel is the highlight of this publication. I usually have numerous mini arguments with Kirti Ayya regarding politics, some aspects of Buddhist philosophy, and most often on functions of the human mind and body. Engineers think that human body works as an engineering model, and the doctors believe it is far from that. It would have been disastrous if Kirti Ayya had followed all doctors' instructions to the letter during his complicated almost 5 decades of long-standing diabetes. On the contrary, it would have been even more disastrous if Kirti Ayya managed his diabetic condition all by himself, the way he wanted, strictly adhering to the engineering theories. In my opinion, managing diseases like diabetes, following doctor's instructions is like buying a ready-made shirt. Patients managing their own disease is like trying to tailor a shirt with little or no knowledge on stitching. What Kirtya is trying to emphasize in his book is how to buy a ready-made shirt and make some tailoring alterations to suit an even odd-shaped body, which will eventually be the ideal suit one can produce. Kirtya truly had odd-shaped body in that sense, since he had many deviations from a normal diabetic, being a young in onset, long-standing, seriously complicated, having unorthodox dietary habits such as being a vegetarian and taking only 2 meals a day. Now, I wish to end my few words by once again welcoming each and every one of you who are present here today to grace this occasion. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Ranjani. Now I'd like to invite the special invitees on stage, Professor Carlo Fonseca, the chief guest for the event, Professor C.L.V. Jayatilaka, special guest, Professor Ranjani Gamage, and Dr. Lasantha Malavige, accompanied by the author, Mr. Arya Kirti Kumarasena. Ladies and gentlemen, next in the agenda is the address by the special guest, who is none other than Professor C.L.V. Jayatilaka. To introduce Professor C.L.V. Jayatilaka, Professor C.L.V. Jayatilaka is an engineering graduate from the University of Peradeniya, formerly known as University of Ceylon. And after obtaining his PhD from the University of Imperial College London, he served as the Dean of the Engineering Faculty of the University of Peradeniya. A senior professor of the university who has taught the author, Mr. Arya Kirti Kumarasena, Professor Jayatilaka is also a former Vice-Chancellor of the University of Peradeniya. He also served as the Professor and Dean at the University of Verona and Chancellor of the University of Coimbra. In addition, he has held portfolios as Director General of the National Institute of Education, Sri Lanka Institute of Advanced Technical Education, Chairman of the National Education Commission, Presidential Commission on Youth, and Faculty Consultant, Colombo Plant Staff College in Manila. Upon retirement, he was made Professor Emeritus and continued to inspire young engineers as a Fellow of the Institute of Engineers, Sri Lanka. Professor C.L.V. Jayatilaka, I'd like to invite you to address the gathering.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My student and friend, Arya Kirti, Professor Carlo Fonseca, and the others on stage. I will not take much time from me, but I want to highlight some points which may be relevant from the point of the medical profession, both the Sri Lankan version, that is the national version, and the Western version, and also something about how one must look out oneself. As an old man, I can talk something about that too. So I will take a few minutes discussing some of these points. Now, this book by Arya Kirti, I have gone through it. He gave it some time back to me. And I found it very interesting because, firstly, my wife is diabetic. So I have to live with her. and also not to advise. That's a dangerous thing, but I carry on helping her in so many ways. Now, one thing that was mentioned in Keithi's book is how people who are diabetic are given advice by others on what to do, what to eat, how to rest oneself and all this. But it's a very stressful thing to be told so many things which are different, maybe untested by other people in good faith. And that I have experienced myself. So I don't advise my wife about how to look after herself, because there will be overdoing something which is can be irritating and even lead to stress for myself. So that I avoid that situation. Now the other thing I noticed or I learned about this diabetes is that many people, both the Western tradition and the Eastern tradition, have cures for this. And at least they claim to have cures for it. And one thing I learned about my late father-in-law is that he was a diabetic himself, and he used to inject himself with insulin. And one day he was injecting himself with insulin dose, and he was seen by a Buddhist monk who was also traveling the train with him. And the Buddhist monk was a physician himself of repute. And then the monk asked him, "Why are you doing this?" He said, "I'm a diabetic." And so he said, "You don't have to worry about this injecting yourself, but there's a good treatment for you." Now, this is not to complicate the life of people who are diabetics, mind you. Now, he said, you have to use gotukola and process it in a certain way and take it for about 2 weeks. And from what I heard about him, he got cured. Later I read about this, not about gotukola itself, but what happens under these conditions of processing. Now the processing involved pulping the gotukola and keeping it under the moonlight, covered with a bit muslin, piece of muslin. And in the morning you take the juice and drink it. Now, I read about how these various enzymes are reacting and produced. It appears that under those atmospheric conditions of the night air and exposure to a certain temperature and humidity condition, an enzyme is created in that mixture. That enzyme is useful in reactivating the pancreas. So, but no, the strange thing is the Ayurvedic people say don't take gotukola. It's bad for diabetics. Now you can see how there's a conflict of knowledge or whatever you can call it. The local medics, the Ayurvedic people don't know about the enzyme reactions, enzymes and how they are produced. It's not in their books. So they will say don't take gotukola juice or kanda or something like that because it's bad for the diabetic. Whereas my father-in-law was cured because this enzyme was created through a certain process. And the monk physician knew about this. So you can see how these traditions are at crossroads sometimes. And that may be also very bad for the nation itself, because if there are discussions where things are shared and research is done on various lines because of the sharing of experience and knowledge, something good might happen. And not that we are going to discover diabetic cure overnight, but maybe something good can come out. The use of enzymes and use of microbial processes are not known to the Ayurvedic people. But I think they should get interested in those things. And other thing that we might also discuss is that even the US pharmacopoeia has drugs extracted from plant sources. And I read in an account that some 60% of Western medicines are derived from plant extracts which they get from the South American rainforests. So you can see how we are maybe losing sight of many valuable contributions that we can make from various, drawing knowledge and experience from various sources. that may be important we should think about. I hope some medical practitioners here become mindful of this and think that they also can contribute to the world, the global stock of knowledge and practices. Whereas what we may be doing is just copying what is told to us by our professors in the West, and then transmit it to our children, our young people, and making them doctors who are not maybe worthy of their position sometimes. Let me not take much of your time, but I want to touch on these 2 points, how the various traditions can come together and do something worthwhile for the diabetic and for other patients as well, and to live a healthy life. Other thing that we might also mention, at least in closing, is that to lead a good life, one must have what we call the peace of mind. That's the main thing in living. Living must lead to the peace of mind. And peace of mind is a thing that not only helps you to live well, it also may be curing you in some instances. The fact that you have peace of mind when you are living through the daytime, maybe going to rest in the night, having peace of mind is a very important thing to be healthy and happy. Please think of that as well. Thank you very much for giving me the occasion to talk to you.
Trinity College Kandy and a grandson of Mr. Arakirti Kumar Sena to recite the theme poem. Sir?
Acquire knowledge and be your nurse. We are born alike, yet not the same. Know your fate and play the life game. Sweet disease, target for the blame, can leave us feeble, blind, deaf, and lame. Modern comforts given by science change your life and its balance. Nature knows the pros and cons. Humans struggle to find what happens. Ancient life that focused on genes did not care about poor beings. Treating symptoms gives some ease. Address the cause to secure peace. Newer findings expand the domain. Knowledge transfer is a process of pain. Clinical interface, crawl or remain. Humans get only a limited gain. IT can help to arrange the knowledge, methods of approach, and techniques of gauge. Systems are robust and will not age. Make it a tool in the supporting range. Stress can be bad, panic is worse. Acquire knowledge and be your own nurse. As the drug trade could be a curse, handle with care to guard your purse. The body is a machine stuck in its habits. Medication is useful, but within its limits. Intrusion may harm, conflicts will damage. The awareness helps to tame and manage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Master Sir. Ladies and gentlemen, next in the agenda is the address by the chief guest. Professor Carlo Fonseca needs no introduction to this audience. After having obtained his PhD from the University of Edinburgh, he served as a professor of the medical faculty of the University of Colombo, and thereafter as the dean of the medical faculty at the Calania University, and later served as the chairman of the board of management of the University of Colombo's Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, and as the president of the Sri Lanka Medical Council. Professor Fonseca was appointed as Professor Emeritus of the University of Colombo and of the University of Calania. In addition, he is a fellow of the Ceylon College of Physicians and the Sri Lanka College of General Practitioners. Apart from his scholarly achievements, Professor Fonseca also served as the president of the Arts Council of Sri Lanka, chairman of the National Authority on Tobacco and Alcohol, and was one of 6 Southeast Asia region awardees of the World No Tobacco Day 2012 awards. He is also a lyricist and a composer and has produced a number of albums, including Kalochitagi in 1992 and Ratharandue in 2006. Ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause to the chief guest of the event, Professor Carlo Fonseca. Sorry for keeping you waiting, sir.
friends, in this audience, there are very experienced senior clinicians, people who know a great deal more than I do about diabetes mellitus. So, some of them must be wondering why I, a retired professor of physiology, was chosen as the guest speaker. On my behalf, I can say that I have a PhD in neuroendocrinology from the University of Edinburgh, the oldest medical school in the United Kingdom, which even Charles Darwin attended in his time, but he was a dropout. So I have a doctorate in philosophy. Perhaps you have heard of that son who told his mother that he was going to be a doctor of philosophy. So the mother said, wonderful, you are going to be a doctor, but what kind of disease is philosophy? That's what she asked. So, having a doctorate in philosophy, how does it help to talk about Kirti's book on diabetes? Well, that's a long story. Kirti, of course, is by any reckoning a remarkable man. Take his family background, very intelligent stock. There is Ranjani Gamage, there is Vajrasena Ratna, and so many others that I pick on those two because I know them so well personally, and they have treated me and have kept me alive and well. Apart from being very gifted genetically, Kirti also in his school days excelled at Ananda College. I am told by his contemporaries that he was really brilliant. And in due course, he became a chartered engineer in electricity and electronics, a chartered professional in IT, and turned out to be a very creative person. In fact, many of you don't know, I think, and I also learnt it only recently, that he designed and invented, produced the first word processor in Sinhala. Well, that alone is an achievement which should make him immortal. Kirti says that he has been a diabetic for 38 years. He is himself only 66. So for nearly 30 years he has been diabetic, and being more observant and intelligent than most people who suffer from diabetes, and given his training in engineering, he has, as Professor Ranjani hinted, not just taken doctor's advice as gospel. He has a mind of his own, a critical mind, and he can process the information probably better than most medical people can do, because he is trained to work to specific objectives and achieve them by precise operations. Whereas we medical people, most of the time, really don't know what's happening, and people survive because years of evolution have given our body protective mechanisms which are hard to beat. So, to the extent that medicine is becoming a science, it is becoming more like engineering. In fact, all recent advances in diagnostic medicine are advances in engineering. So, Kirti has to be taken seriously. When Ranjani asked me to have a look at his book, I readily agreed, and then having browsed through it, I found it very interesting, and then through her mediation, I had the pleasure of meeting Kirti personally and having a chat with him. It's only then that I came to know that apart from being an engineer, he is also steeped in Buddhist philosophy, and not just the theory of Buddhism, but the practice of Buddhism, especially the meditative aspects of Buddhism. And so this created even a greater interest in me, and I had 2 or 3 very interesting long sessions with him. He is, of course, properly cautious, as all careful engineers should be. He is not claiming too much for his views. He says that doctors who have managed diabetes for long know about it much more than he does. But he is not willing to just accept without examination the advice that is given to him. So far as I am concerned, diabetes has been a topic of great interest to me, especially because one of my major enterprises was popularization of science. And Diyavadiyave Hetuwa Soyagat Sati is the title of one of my most oft repeated lectures, Diyavadiyave Hetuwa Soyagat Sati. And I think many of you know the history, but allow me to remind you of the major facts, because it tells us many things about the way scientists work and the kind of thing that goes on in the name of research and publication. Of course, diabetes has a long history and dismal record of treatment. People with diabetes acquired early in life invariably died before they were in their teens or in their 20s. Things were like this for a very long time until in the 19th century, a man called Minkowski, Oskar Minkowski, removed the pancreas of a dog just to see whether the animal can live without a pancreas. That's experimental science, Professor Jaitilaka, which, when you first hear about it, shocks us a bit, but that's how it happened. He was curious to know whether a dog can live without the pancreas. The pancreas is a long, like Kimbula bunnies, that shape in the abdomen. And he noticed that the dog survived the operation, but the urine the dog passed attracted flies, and when he tested the urine, he found that there was sugar in it. So the idea arose in his mind, the pancreas must play some role in the regulation of sugar in the body. The pancreas has a role in preventing glucose from coming into the urine. So that was the first observation, and this was confirmed by several repetitions. There was no doubt then, ladies and gentlemen, that the pancreas has something to do with diabetes. Everybody knew at that stage that the pancreas produces digestive juices, juices which help to digest protein and carbohydrates and fats and all manner of things. So everyone assumed that this anti-diabetic factor, shall we call it, because the name insulin was not known at that stage, the anti-diabetic factor must be in this pancreatic juice. But all attempts to extract that substance failed. Heaven knows how many dogs were sacrificed. Then in the 1900s, people, instead of removing the pancreas, the pancreas produces the juices and they come through a tube and open into the small intestine, into the part of the small intestine just after the stomach, so-called duodenum. And so there is the tube leading from the pancreas to the small intestine, and they tied the tube. Same effect as removing the pancreas. Theoretically, the juices no longer reach the gut, but the dogs did not get diabetes. The dogs did not get sugar in their urine. So now see the kind of experimental way Western medicine, or I should say rational thinking on the subject, proceeded. There is no doubt that the pancreas has something to do with diabetes. Second, there is no doubt that that substance is not in the pancreatic juice. Then where is it? By this time, histologists, that is to say people who examine the structure of organs very closely with microscopes, they found that apart from the cells which produce digestive juices, there are other little islands of cells in the pancreas. They do not open into the tube which opens into the gut. So everyone thought, oh, the anti-diabetic factor must be in those little islands of cells, the islets as they are called. Very good. How to get that substance? So any number of scientists, workers, extracted the pancreas, removed the pancreas, took those cells, raw, fresh cells, and pounded the stuff in suitable mortars and got a filtrate, but no anti-diabetic factor was found. So people gave that up. Then came this young man, dropout really, very unimpressive record, Frederick Banting, who had what turned out to be a brilliant idea. In fact, the only brilliant idea he ever had, but that was enough. He said, okay, the stuff that is preventing diabetes must be in those islets, but because we are taking the organ fresh out of the dog, what is produced in those islets must be mixing with the juice, and that juice must be destroying that stuff. Do you follow the argument? You can't get the real anti-diabetic factor because it is being destroyed by mixing with the pancreatic juices when you extract them and put them in a mortar and pound it. Then how to get that without mixing? Banting hit upon the idea. Take a dog, tie the pancreatic deck. In 6 weeks, all the cells producing pancreatic juice will disappear, shrivel up. In that stage, in that shriveled up state, take the pancreas and try to extract. That worked. An account of this was given, and nobody took Banting seriously because he was kind of drop out. He tried one thing and another, and the story is that he was engaged to a girlfriend, and even she left him on the ground that he is a doctor who is not getting any patients. So he was depressed. He sold his whatever equipment he had, and with this idea wrote to the professor of physiology in the University of Toronto. His name is spelled M-C-L-E-O-D, MacLeod. If you spell it out like that, pronounce it like that, but the correct pronunciation is MacLeod. Professor MacLeod wrote a letter to MacLeod and say, "Dear sir, I want to discover the cause of diabetes. For this I need 10 dogs, the use of a lab for 8 weeks, and the help of someone who knows physiology and chemistry." So MacLeod thought, here is another nut who is wasting his money. So there was a MSc student in his, medical student in his department called Charles Best. He told Charles Best, "Look, there is this guy, Frederick Banting, he's willing to pay for the experiments. You just keep him amused. I'm going on long leave." And he went to Scotland for about six months. During this period, Best and Banting got together, and that's the fascinating story which is too long for me to relate to you. They discovered it, but when MacLeod heard about it, he quickly came and took over the whole thing. He said, "Whatever happens in this department is really my work, you are mine." To cut a long story short, he got the Nobel Prize in 1922, sharing it with Banting. And Banting, as soon as he got his part of the money, shared it with Best, his buddy. Now, 5 years later, at a London gathering of the Diabetics Association, the president of that association, who was alternative medicine, much harm is coming to our people. But look at the way the cause of diabetes was established scientifically every step of the way. And we can repeat it now if you doubt it. That is the way that proper knowledge is established. Now Kirti, the engineer, is aware of all this, and but he is quite aware also of the limitations of scientific method and how it must be applied with care and diligence to his own case. And then this, I think, Professor Jayatilaka and I will both agree, he also brings into the management of his condition a spiritual element, the kind of meditative experience which certainly seems to help him to adjust to this condition. Now just, my friends, look at him now, how serene and happy and contented he looks. A man who has suffered from any number of complications of diabetes for 38 years. How does he maintain that kind of serenity, poise, stability? That, I think, comes from his devotion to Buddhist theory and practice. That is something valuable we have. And Kirti, I wish you all the very best. You have written this book. I'm sure you will enjoy reading it. And I found it very, very profitable and enjoyable. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Carlo Fonseca, Chief Guest for the event. Ladies and gentlemen, next in the agenda is the official launch and presentation of the copies of the book. But before we commence, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce the author. Mr. Arya Kirti Kumarasena is an old boy of the prestigious Ananda College and a graduate from the University of Peradeniya, formerly known as the University of Ceylon, in electrical and electronic engineering. He later obtained his Masters of Science degree from the State University of New York in the same field. A chartered IT professional and a chartered engineer, Mr. Kumarasena holds 2 patents to his name for multi-input fast adder and word processor for combined character languages. Having started his professional career as an assistant lecturer at the University of Peradeniya, Mr. Kumarasena was also a radar engineer at the Katunayaka International Airport until he moved into engineering research at the National Engineering Research Institute. He has served as a director in several private sector organizations, including Suntel Private Limited, Bhagawantalao Plantations, at Engineering Consultants Private Limited, and all companies of the Metropolitan Group. Currently, he serves as the Consultant Group Director of the Metropolitan Group of Companies. Among his many achievements and portfolios, Mr. Kumarasena has contributed to the drafting of Sinhala Unicode, designed and developed the first Sinhala word processor, represented Sinhala language computing at the United Nations Forum on Local Language Computing, and developed the extension of the radar range from 140 nautical miles to 180 nautical miles. Mr. Kumarasena is a disciplined practitioner of Buddhism and has delivered lectures and conducted Dhamma discussions in England and Australia. In addition, he has authored many books on Buddhist philosophies, social welfare, management practices, and values, such as Meditation in Practice, Path to Happiness Through Merit, Practicable Guide to Manage Emotions Towards Organizational Improvement. The book titled An Engineer's Experience of and Views on Diabetes is the author's 60th publication. He has written 49 books to date in Sinhala as well. His last release were the 2 books dedicated to his parents and were themed Amma and Tata. Ladies and gentlemen, now it's time for the official launch of the book. I'd like to invite the author, Mr. Arya Kirti Kumarasena, to present the first copy to the special invitees on stage. Firstly, to the chief guest, Professor Carlo Fonseca. Can we have a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for the presentation of the first copy of the 60th book of Mr. Arya Kirti Kumarasena. Next, to the special guest, Professor C.L.V. Jaitilaka. Next, to Professor Ranjini Gamage. And next to Dr. Lasantha Malavige. Ladies and gentlemen, the author, Mr. Arya Kirti Kumarasena, will now present a few more copies of the book to a few more very special invitees present here today. proceed with the events proceedings, next in the agenda is a presentation of tokens of appreciation by Mr. Kumarasena. The first token of appreciation will be presented to the chief guest of the event, Professor Carlo Fonseca, by the author, Mr. Arya Kirti Kumarasena. The next token of appreciation is presented to the special guest, Professor C.L.V. Jayatilaka, by the author, Ms. Arya Kirti Kumarasena. The next token of appreciation is presented to Mrs. Chaminta Tilakaratna. Mrs. Dulanjali Raigamarachi. Mr. K. Karnaratna.
Mr. Praveen Samarkon.
Ladies and gentlemen, next in the agenda is the presentation of vote of thanks by Dr. Lasantha Malavige. To introduce Dr. Lasantha Malavige, he is a well-known and respected consultant in sexual health medicine, currently holding the presidency of the South Asian Society for Sexual Health Medicine. His specialty area of interest, which has been chosen for his PhD, is very apt for the topic in discussion today, diabetic complication in sexual health. A former research fellow at the Oxford Centre for Diabetes, or the UKPDS, at the University of Oxford, UK, Dr. Malavige is also the author's nephew. He is also the chairman and managing director of Lassana Flora. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Lasantha Malavige.
Ibowan. I have always fascinated by Mr. Arya Kirti Kumarasena, my uncle, for his intellect, analytical thinking, his interest in theories and hypotheses. I consider it a great honor and a privilege to propose a vote of thanks on behalf of my uncle at this book launch. Our chief guest this evening, Professor Carlo Fonseca, is a respected medical personality, academic, philosopher, and a political activist. We are extremely grateful to you, sir, for accepting to be the chief guest this evening and delivering a thought-provoking lecture. Respected sir, your contribution in terms of valuable comments, reviewing the book, and providing a forward for the book is much appreciated. Thank you very much. Our special guest this evening, Professor C.L.V. Jayathilaka, is one of the most respected engineering academic. I would like to convey our sincere gratitude on behalf of Mr. Kumarasena, who has been your student at Peradeniya University, for gracing this occasion and for your excellent speech. Thank you, Professor Ranjani Gamage, who is a cousin of the author, for all the support you have extended with valuable comments and suggestions for the book and delivering the welcome speech today. Thank you, Madam. On behalf of Mr. Kumarasena, I would like to thank Mr. J.J. Ambani, Mr. Eranjit Gunaratna, and rest of the board of directors at the Metropolitan for encouraging to use Metropolitan resources in managing this event. Metropolitan staff proved how good they are in event management too, especially Chaminta Tilakaratna, who has done a fabulous job in this event as the event manager, together with the Lanchali media communication staff of Metropolitan. We thank Nipuna Ranavira for arranging the media coverage, Shanta and Print Hub staff of Metropolitan for all print-related work, and Menuka laminators for printing the book is appreciated. Also, we appreciate the work done by Metropolitan staff on the e-release of the book. Thank you, Master Osal Vikramasinghe, author's grandson, for reciting the theme poem today. Mr. Praveen Samarakon, our energetic compeer, thank you so much for your valuable contribution. We also thank the staff of the Foundation Institute for their support and encouraging support in organizing this event. Mr. Kumarasena would like to thank staff of Lasana Flora for decorations. I apologize for the conflict of interest. We thank all the print and electronic media personnel who are here today for the support. I thank all doctors and medical related professionals, including Dr. Vajra Senaratna, Dr. Risni Kasim, Dr. Ajit Karunaratna, who have been looking after the health of my uncle. Special thanks to Mr. Kumarasena sisters, Mrs. Jagatmala Bandara, Mrs. Udita Sena Kumarasena Yapa, Dr. Mrs. Buddhanandani Karunatilaka, Mrs. Mayrulata Gunatunga, brothers S.A. Kumarasena, Mr. C.C. Kumarasena, and brother-in-laws Dr. D.H. Karunatilaka and Mr. Dayaratna Bandara for their love, care, and support throughout. Thank you, Dr. Manori Bandara, Mrs. Manodya Bandara, and Dr. Mayura Yapa for all your help in many ways. Mr. Karunaratna's contribution is appreciated sincerely. Finally, on behalf of my uncle, I would like to thank all the distinguished guests, including Ananda College teachers and colleagues, and the Peradeniya University academics, lecturers, and also friends from the Peradeniya University, Metropolitan staff, former staff, neighbors, relatives, family members, well-wishers, and all participants, and those who sent their wishes. Thank you so much. The last, but not the least, I thank each and every one of you who are here today and also who have helped in this book launch in many other ways. Thank you so much. I apologize not thanking individually. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lasantha. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we conclude the events proceedings of the launch of the 60th book of Mr. Arya Kirti Kumarasena, An Engineer's Experience of and Views on Diabetes. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your presence. And I'd like to invite you all for refreshments near the garden area of the Sri Lanka Foundation Institute. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and have a pleasant evening. Good night.